All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, as you likely know, New York Post got their hands on data that they say comes from a laptop of Hunter Biden, which got left at a Delaware repair shop. The most newsworthy revelations thus far involve Hunter's business dealings in Ukraine. And actually, the biggest story has become the way that social media companies unilaterally decided to completely censor these articles. Sagar is covering that angle in his radar. But there's another aspect here as well, which frankly is extraordinarily sensitive to talk about. And that is Hunter Biden's longtime struggle with addiction and whether it is at all relevant to Joe Biden's presidential campaign. And obviously, in the most direct sense, the answer is completely not. Included in the documents published by the Post were photos of Hunter's drug use. I'm not going to show them here because they are salacious, they're exploitative, and they have zero news value. I don't expect the trashy New York Post to hold themselves to any standards, but publishing those pictures was disgraceful and does detract from any potentially important revelations regarding Hunter trading on the Biden name. So no, Hunter's drug use is not germane. It's not fair game in any sense. But as millions of Americans struggle with addiction and are criminalized for that struggle, it is worth considering how Joe Biden's rightful expectation of forbearance for his son matches up with the brutal policies he's pursued for everyone else's children. Hunter's drug use actually came up at the debate between Trump and Biden. Trump launched an ill-conceived and insensitive attack, and Biden rightfully responded with moral indignation. Let's take a listen.
My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
And Joe is right there in that messy exchange. So many struggle with addiction, and they deserve help, not condemnation, judgment, and shaming, whether they're the son of a vice president or the son of a janitor. In fact, the numbers we have so far from pandemic-era America show that our national overdose and addiction epidemic has only worsened as a result of the stress and the job loss wrought by coronavirus. Per the Wall Street Journal, suspected overdoses rose almost 18% after stay-at-home orders were implemented across the country back in mid-March, compared with the early 2020 period before the pandemic struck, according to data from the Overdose Detection Mapping Application Program, which collects real-time overdose numbers nationally. Now, keep in mind, last year was the worst year in all of American history for overdose deaths. After a slight one-year decline back in 2018, 2019 ended as the most deadly year on record. We are in the throes of the worst addiction crisis in American history, and like almost everything else of substance, it is barely even mentioned in our presidential contest. This was actually one of the issues that Trump ran on back in 2016 that has somehow vanished from his priorities this time around. An analysis after the election showed that counties with high overdose rates voted disproportionately for Donald Trump. So clearly, the millions of Americans who have a friend or a family member or are struggling themselves with addiction responded to something in that campaign. This year, we haven't heard a word from him on the issue other than to denigrate Hunter for his struggles. But Biden does not get a pass here either. Far from it. Think about this. As a senator, Joe Biden was integral in helping to architect the racist 100-to-1 crack cocaine sentencing disparity. He wants forbearance and recovery for his own son, who, by the way, his drug of choice appears to be crack. And Hunter should 100% have exactly that. But where is that understanding and chance at a new beginning for a generation of poor and disproportionately black men who had their lives destroyed for minor drug offenses under Biden's system of mass incarceration? Look, when you're the senator's kid, the vice president's kid, there's endless second chances, not to mention cushy fake board positions with massive financial payouts. For millions of Americans whose lives have been destroyed by addiction and the criminalizing of addiction, they have not been nearly so lucky. Now, it would be one thing if Vice President Biden had completely changed on these issues. And certainly, he has admitted that he was wrong on the sentencing disparity, and he also now embraces decriminalizing marijuana, which is a step forward, although far short of the legalization which 2/3 of Americans now support. But on the overall approach to criminalizing those struggling with addiction, he's still defending that old '94 crime bill. Remember that infamous interview with Charlemagne the God? Obviously, the contentious end of the interview, when Biden made his terrible "then you ain't black" comments, was what everyone focused on. But much of the substance of the interview was on that '94 crime bill that Joe Biden himself authored. And Joe didn't budge 1 inch or offer a smidgen of apology.
That's what this is all about for me. It's about equality. It's about dignity. It's about treating people with respect. And so, when you take a look at my record, people talk about the crime bill. Crime bill didn't increase mass incarceration. Other things increased mass incarceration. And the reason why, if you go back and look, and I know you talk about it, you go back and take a look. That's why you had the vast majority of the Black caucus at the time supporting the crime bill.
Listen, if you care about addiction, if you care about the criminalizing of poor communities, care about public health, there's only one answer here, and it's to end the drug war. We've been interdicting heroin in this country for 100 years, and there is simply no doubt that it is a failed policy with devastating human consequences. Who could possibly argue that what we're doing now is working? Countries like Portugal have pioneered new approaches in truly treating addiction like a health crisis, and they've had less crime, dramatically fewer overdose deaths, and a decline in addiction overall. The bottom line is this: everyone deserves the chance at recovery that Hunter Biden has had. And Hunter's father has denied that to far too many. And Sagar, it struck me, look, there is a lot going on in this country right now. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But when you think back to 2016, this was a major issue.
Well, it still is a major issue.
I'm talking about in terms of conversation in the presidential debate, it was a major issue. Now things are only that much worse. And we hear nothing about it. I mean, people's lives are being lost every day, devastated, ruined. It's only gotten worse during the pandemic. I looked at probably 10 different articles about just how much overdose deaths have spiked during the pandemic. And because this has been such a completely substance-free election, we don't hear one word about it.
Well, I can only give you anecdotal data and micro data, but in the city of San Francisco, over the period of lockdown, there are 4 times more drug overdose deaths than there have been coronavirus. So several hundred overdose deaths on the street. That's just one city. That's one American city. So what about New York? What about L.A.? What about Chicago? And Austin, so many other different places. Here in D.C., I mean, we can obviously see with our own eyes, you can see that things are getting bad. And we lost in 2018, I think something like an entire Vietnam War's worth of people to drug overdose. Yeah. Just drug overdose. That's crazy. I mean, it's
about
one of the
80,000 people.
It's one of the leading causes of death. It actually overtook car crashes, I think, for younger people in terms of the leading causes of death. Something's happening, and you're right. Look, this guy, what galls me, it's not just that he got off; it's that he was using the family name to fund his crack addiction with the at least tacit approval of his father, the former vice president. And I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. You do not, like you said, there are many millions of people who go into jail for a long time for doing 1/10 of what Hunter did. And this guy's taking photos of himself. This guy is cavorting with Eastern European prostitutes and striking deals with all these people in China. And I'm reading through his emails, which, Twitter and Facebook don't want me to read. And I'm looking at a very greedy person desperate for money who is constantly hitting up these Russian and Chinese oligarchs and Ukrainian oligarchs. In the Burisma deal, he's like, I need more. Right? He's getting paid $50,000 a month, and he's trying to increase his nut to $25,000 more. And this is all in the midst of a horrific crack addiction. And look, guy's got demons. Feel bad for the guy.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the same in your community. Whenever you see something like that going on, it's on you to try and do something about it. And Biden clearly didn't do anything. That really bothers me.
To me, the piece is you can see in this one story and in this one family the two-tier system of justice.
Sure, yeah.
The two-tier just classist treatment. You know, if you're rich, if you're connected, and you have an addiction struggle, you're going to get second chances, you're going to be floated, you're going to be given forbearance, you're going to have all kinds of opportunities to get your life back on track. Everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves that. And so to me, there's such an inconsistency between what Joe Biden expects for his son, which is what we would all expect and want for our kids.
For every citizen, yes.
But that doesn't match up with the policy that he not only has pursued in the past, but that he continues to pursue today. And to me, that's the piece that, look, Hunter's addiction, that's a private struggle. I don't judge it. I hope he is doing well. I hope he's doing better. Where it becomes relevant is in what it means for the policy approach of Joe Biden and how that applies to millions of Americans.
Well, if you think, look, Hunter's like 50 years old, right? It took him 50 years to get clean. A
Yeah.
lifetime of addiction. That's actually quite common if you look at recidivism.
Absolutely it is.
In heroin, crack in particular.
Some people never get over it.
Many do not ever get over it. And so you can go and look at that. How many times Hunter should have been arrested? You've seen some of these criminal reports about his behavior, leaving car keys in a gas tank for a rental car with crack pipe in the middle. I mean, any normal person, you, me, any else, we're going to jail.
You'd be done.
You're jail. That's it. There's no question. And every time he gets over it, nice rehab clinic, $50,000 a month or something like that. And again, I don't begrudge the guy for having access to this world-class healthcare. I'm glad he's doing well. He's a painter now, and he seems clean. That's great. But there's a lot of people that didn't get that. A lot of people I grew up with who died in a McDonald's bathroom. All right? And, you got to think about that.
Indeed. All right, Sagar, looking forward to your radar. That's next.